Imagine you're out on the frozen Alaskan tundra. You're caught in a total whiteout. I mean, you literally can't see anything.
Right, it's just completely blank.
Exactly. So looking for a landmark is basically pointless. The last thing you should do is rely on what you can see. Instead, you have to look at the shape of the wind.
Which is such a wild concept. It's really the ultimate test of situational awareness.
It really is. And today we are doing a deep dive into exactly that. What happens when you step into a brand new world and nobody has handed you a rule book?
Because that happens all the time. Like whether you're a seventh grader arriving at a remote Alaska fish camp for the very first time, or maybe a new employee walking into a corporate boardroom.
Or a scientist stepping onto a shifting ice floe.
Right. Every single environment has its own hidden rule book. You've got the visible expectations, sure, but there are countless invisible ones too.
And you can't just fake your way through it. So that's our focus today. We're looking at a framework called Alaska Cultural Standards C4.
Yeah, it's an educational standard built for students and educators up in Alaska, but honestly, the applications are pretty universal.
The whole core of it is the ability to enter into and function effectively in a variety of cultural settings, which, isn't about memorizing a massive list of do's and don'ts.
Oh, definitely not. And it is definitely not about erasing your own identity just to fit in. It's much more about observation, humility, and, well, learning how to learn.
To unpack all this, we're pulling from a great stack of sources. We've got materials from the Alaska Native Knowledge Network, the BioForge Middle School Life Science Curriculum, and some really fascinating research on place-based education.
And these sources take this abstract idea of cultural navigation and apply it directly to real life, like how science is actually practiced and how communities function.
But I feel like to even start that process, we kind of have to change our whole mental model of what a cultural setting actually is.
That is a great place to start. Because, I mean, when you hear cultural setting, your brain probably jumps straight to ethnicity or nationality.
Yeah, like getting on a plane and flying to a foreign country.
Exactly. But this framework blows that definition wide open. A cultural setting is basically any space that has its own unique expectations.
Okay, so like a tribal council meeting, obviously.
Sure, but it's also your family dinner table, or a sports team, a local ecosystem, a science lab, or even just some chaotic online group chat.
Right, because each of those spaces has rules, like who gets to speak first, or how time is managed.
And how silence is used, that's a huge one.
Silence is massive. I mean, in some rooms, silence is just awkward. You feel like you have to rush in and fill it with small talk.
Yeah, but in other spaces, silence is a sign of deep respect. It shows you're actively listening.
So the setting changes everything. And the sources point out that the physical environment itself is a cultural setting.
Yes, the research actually refers to the land as having an 11,110-year engineering record.
Wow, that's a lot of data.
It really is. So stepping onto a subsistence hunting ground or a tidal flat, you're stepping into a space with thousands of years of accumulated rules.
Which means education has to shift, right? Like instead of just teaching about a culture from a textbook, you have to teach through the local culture.
Exactly, teaching through it.
It kind of reminds me of the difference between reading a recipe book in a quiet library versus stepping into a bustling commercial kitchen on a Friday night.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Because in the library, you're just learning about cooking. It's totally passive. But in that working kitchen, the environment dictates every single move you make.
Yeah, if you stop to read the manual in the kitchen, a line cook is going to run you over with a tray of hot soup. You have to just jump in and figure out the rhythm of the room.
But that raises a big question for you, the listener. If you are standing in that busy kitchen or out on that tidal flat, how do you actually figure out what to do without causing a disaster?
Right, because nobody is standing there handing you a syllabus.
Exactly.
Well, this is where we get into what's called the pedagogy of observation. In a lot of Alaska Native cultures, like the Inupiat and Yupik traditions, learning is historically rooted in quiet, long-term observation.
Meaning you observe for a long time before you ever try to participate.
Exactly. The sequence goes like this. Pause, observe, listen, learn, ask, participate, and then reflect and repair.
Okay, walk us through that practically. What does it look like?
Think about a young observer learning how to navigate shifting sea ice or how to load a hunting boat. They don't just jump in and start throwing gear around.
That would probably be dangerous.
Highly dangerous. They watch expert hunters over a sustained period of time. First, they notice the big, obvious things like where the heaviest bags go.
Right.
But gradually, that observation gets incredibly granular. They start to see how moving a 50-pound bag just a few inches changes the way the boat handles in rough water.
Or like the specific knots they use when the temperature drops.
Exactly.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
If you look at a typical Western science classroom or, a modern tech startup, people are usually rewarded for doing the exact opposite.
Oh, absolutely.
You get points for raising your hand first, shouting out a guess, moving fast, and breaking things. If you just sit silently in a corporate meeting, they'll think you're checked out.
Yeah, or that you just don't know the answer. And that tension you're describing is exactly why standard C4 is so crucial.
Because the rules are completely different.
Right. In Western settings, rapid verbal response is often coded as intelligence. But this indigenous practice of slowing down, pausing, observing, it's not passivity.
It's actual data gathering.
Yes, it's a highly rigorous, empirical application of the scientific method. Pausing is how you gather the data you need to survive.
So you really have to read the room to know which version of competence is required.
Precisely. And when you apply this to modern science in Alaska, the results are just incredible.
Like with the scientific fieldwork examples and the sources.
Yeah, let's talk about the bearded seals in Kotzebue Sound.
Yeah.
You have these university researchers and federal scientists coming in to study them.
But they can't just slap down their standard study design.
No, they have to partner directly with local tribal hunters. Because if the scientists arrive planning to tag seals in June based on some generic model,
The hunters step in and correct them.
right, the local hunters have generations of observational data. They know the sea ice dynamics are changing rapidly.
The ice breaks up earlier now.
Exactly. So they tell the researchers, look, if you come in June, the seals will be gone. You have to be here in May.
Wow. So the scientists have to know how to enter that cultural setting, show respect, and actually co-produce the knowledge.
It's a perfect example of humility as a technical skill.
Not just a nice character trait.
Exactly. And it's not just biology either. The curriculum gets into physics and spatial geometry out on the landscape.
Oh yeah, going back to that whiteout navigation we talked about at the start. How do hunters actually navigate the tundra when they can't see anything?
They read the physical patterns that the wind carves into the snow. The prevailing winter winds in Alaska sculpt these hard, frozen ridges. They're called sastrugi. Yeah, and because the regional winds blow in consistent directions, these snow waves act like a frozen compass needle.
So if you know how to feel the texture of the snow under your boots,
You know exactly which way is north, even if you're totally blinded by the weather.
that is just wild. It completely redefines what we consider a scientific instrument.
It really does. And on clear nights, the Yupik star navigation is just as rigorous.
I found this part of the reading absolutely mind-blowing.
It's amazing. During long winter nights, a hunter will check the position of the Gamma star in the Centauri constellation to figure out time and direction.
But they aren't using a brass sextant or a telescope.
No, they use their own bodies.
Mm-hmm.
The human arm and hand basically become a fixed protractor.
Okay, explain how the handspan measurement actually works for the listener.
Sure. So a hunter extends their arm fully and uses a specific sequence of handspans stretching their fingers out wide.
Right.
And they combine that with 3 to 4 finger rotations to measure the exact height of the star above the horizon.
So it's this incredibly precise mathematical calculation blending human biology, geometry, and astronomy.
Yes.
If you're listening to this, just picture yourself standing on the frozen tundra, using the joints of your own fingers to calculate the Earth's rotation.
Yeah, brilliant.
It just proves that high-level science happens everywhere, not just in some white-walled laboratory.
And applying this framework changes how we engineer our modern infrastructure, too. Like, when you observe an environment culturally, you stop building things that fight the ecosystem.
Give me an example of that.
Take civil engineering. For a long time, engineers just poured smooth concrete to build road culverts.
Right, just a concrete pipe for water to go under a road.
But the water blasts through that smooth concrete way too fast, and the local fish can't swim upstream.
Because the engineers didn't pause and observe the local setting.
Exactly. So now, using place-based observation, they design what are called stream simulation culverts.
So they make it look like the actual stream.
Yeah. They study the local stream dynamics and physically recreate the native stream bed right inside the tunnel. They place specific rocks and logs to create little resting pools.
Oh, so it mimics the natural water velocity and the animals can actually use it.
Precisely.
But navigating all these spaces, it requires a lot of adaptation. If
Yeah.
you're an engineer from a big city moving out to rural Alaska or a student moving from a village to an urban university, you have to adapt,
You bet.
which brings up a really delicate balance. How do you adapt to a new setting without just erasing your own identity?
That is the big question.
Like, how do you participate without just masking who you really are?
This is a major focus for educators. The materials introduce this concept, developed by Micmac elders Albert and Merdina Marshall. It's called two-eyed seeing, or Echuap-Monk.
Okay.
It's all about epistemological parity.
Epistemological parity. Let's break that down.
It basically means treating different ways of knowing as total equals. So using Western science and traditional ecological knowledge tech as complementary systems.
But
And crucially, it means you don't use Western science to try and validate or prove indigenous knowledge. You use the strengths of both together.
it makes me think of wearing a pair of old school 3D glasses.
Oh, right.
Like one lens is red, the other lens is blue. If you close your left eye, you only see the red picture. It makes sense, but it's flat.
Yeah, you're missing half the data.
And if you close your right eye, you only see the blue picture. But if you look through both lenses at the same time, it doesn't erase either color.
Right, the brain combines them.
Yeah. It creates a whole new dimension of depth. You see the world actually popping out at you.
I love that visual. That depth is exactly what two-eyed seeing aims for.
Hmm.
But to get there, the curriculum warns against a huge risk: pan-indigenization.
Which is the idea that all indigenous cultures are just kind of interchangeable.
Exactly. Homogenizing distinct cultures.
Yep.
Like you can't take Southeast Tlingit traditions, which are all about navigating a coastal rainforest.
And transplant them into an interior Athabascan classroom.
Right, because that's the boreal forest. It's totally different. Adaptation requires intense, place-based specificity.
It also means respecting personal boundaries, right?
100%. Students shouldn't ever be pressured to share private, sacred family knowledge just to fulfill a classroom assignment.
You don't have to become the culture to respect the culture.
Exactly.
And that brings us to another really fascinating layer of invisible rules: neurodiversity.
Oh, this is such an important piece.
Because if we're talking about reading unspoken social cues, that can be a total minefield for neurodivergent learners.
It is a massive hurdle. If a setting relies entirely on subtle body language or unwritten rules about turn-taking.
A neurodivergent student might miss those cues entirely.
Yeah, and then they feel excluded. Or they spend all their energy masking, trying to artificially mimic everyone else, which is just exhausting.
So how does a framework like C4 address that?
It advocates for UDL, universal design for learning, combined with neurocognitive scaffolding.
Basically creating a low-floor, high-ceiling environment.
Right. It's highly accessible to start, but there's no limit to how complex the learning can get.
Give me a concrete example of what that looks like in a classroom.
Well, instead of forcing everyone to learn the rules of a room through one single method like just listening to a long lecture, you use multisensory techniques.
Like visual mapping or hands-on practice.
Exactly. A student who struggles with abstract verbal instructions might instantly grasp the physics of a fish wheel if they actually build a small physical model with their hands.
So it creates multiple entry points. They figure out the rules of the space without having to mask their neurodivergence.
Yes.
I want to pivot a bit, though, to the reality of what happens when this whole process goes wrong.
Because it definitely does.
Yeah, I mean, even with keen observation and two-eyed seeing, human beings make mistakes. You walk into enough new settings, eventually you're going to misread the room.
It's inevitable.
You'll design a project that totally misses the mark. What happens then?
Well, ignoring the rules of a setting, even accidentally, leads to a breakdown. In biology and engineering, if you ignore the local environment, you create what's called an ecological trap.
An ecological trap, what does that actually look like?
Let's look back at those early fish ladders on dams. Engineers built them with good intentions to help salmon migrate.
But they used a generic model.
Right. They failed to observe the specific swimming stamina of the local fish. The water velocity in the generic ladder was too high, so the local salmon exhausted themselves trying to climb it.
Oh, man. So they couldn't make it up to spawn.
No. The population crashed. The design actively harmed the ecosystem it was supposed to help.
That is so tragic. The generic solution became a literal trap.
And in a human cultural setting, failures look a bit different, but they're just as damaging. It often takes the form of cultural extraction.
Basically tokenism.
Yeah. It's when a tradition is used superficially, maybe just to hook a student's interest, but it's completely stripped of its ethical context.
Like, having students build a traditional wooden fish trap out of popsicle sticks in art class,
Exactly.
but never actually teaching them about the resource management laws or the respect for the animal that makes the trap meaningful in the first place.
Right. It reduces a brilliant, complex system of survival down to a cheap craft project.
But the framework doesn't just point out these failures, it actually gives a mechanism to repair them, right?
It does. It advocates for restorative practices and collaborative consent with local elders.
Okay, if you are listening to this right now, pay close attention, because this repair process is something you can use in literally any room you walk into.
It really is.
Whether you offended a coworker or messed up a community project, what are the actual steps?
First, you stop. You pause your action.
Okay.
Then, you listen to the people who understand the setting better than you do.
Mm.
You acknowledge the impact your actions had, regardless of your good intentions.
Because intent doesn't erase impact.
Exactly. You apologize without making excuses. And then, and this is the big one, you ask the community what would help to make it right.
You adjust your model.
Yes. You change your behavior, and you keep learning.
I love this reframing so much because it means that when a project fails or a social boundary gets crossed, it's not a dead end.
No, not at all.
If you're using that pedagogy of observation, a failure is actually just a new piece of data. You don't throw your hands up and quit. You adjust your hypothesis and try again.
It really is the embodiment of the scientific mindset.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the core takeaway for you listening right now is actually incredibly empowering.
Yeah, you do not have to know everything before you enter a new space.
You don't need to memorize a giant rule book before you step into an Alaska fish camp or a new school or a board meeting. You just need to know how to learn.
You need to know how to slow down, observe carefully, ask the right questions, and respect the people who call that space home.
Well said.
And I'll leave you with one final thought to mull over today. How might your daily life change if you treated every new room you entered, whether it's a tense family dinner or a chaotic online forum, as a complex, living ecosystem?
Oh, that's a great question.
What invisible expectations would you suddenly notice if you just took a moment to pause and quietly observe the snow waves of your own environment?